Alright, so we are here at our training center. My name is Josh Bowling, firefighter here in the city of Springfield. We're still doing our forcible entry class. Now it's time for our practicals. So we've got our class here, we've got our door prop, all of our protective equipment. We're going to kind of go over that now. Our exits are there. Freshmen's bathrooms are in the corner of the room over here. And but what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of look at the door prop. This door prop, it's a outward swinging and inward swinging door prop. So outward swinging, and then if you come around on this side, you can also force it inward swinging. So this is what we're going to be using today to simulate our forcible entry practical skills. So we're going to go ahead and kind of get our PPE on. So first off, we're just going to do coat, helmet, gloves, and eye protection. So good coat. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate donning the coat, zipping it up. Then we'll do our helmet as well. We got our safety glasses. And gloves. So right now we're going to probably demonstrate first off carrying the forcible entry tools. So obviously we have our flathead axe, Halligan, New York hook. We also have our Hydra ram. We will demonstrate that at the end of the class. But so for carrying the axe, like we learned, we place the blade between our side and our arm, covering the cutting edge, and we could walk with it. We walk into place to force our door. Since we will be keeping these married, we'll carry them just like this, getting into place to force our door. So we also have ear protection here. So that's going to be kind of just an overall demonstration. We're going to start off with a two-man forcible entry. So Justin, if you want to put your coat on, or Captain Charney, he's ready to go. So we will work together then. So we're just going to do that and then demonstrate we'll start off with two-man outward swinging. So we'll do two-man outward swinging door, and then we'll probably do two-man inward swinging door. So if you would like to operate the axe for me, I will. Get my ear protection on. Alright, so like we were talking about, whenever we're walking up to the door, we're sizing up the door. We're looking, first thing, can we see the hinges or not? We can see the hinges. So, got the hinges here, so that tells us the door's outward swinging. If we can't see the hinges, then we know the door is inward swinging. So, first thing, what do we want to do first thing?
Try it.
We want to try it. So we're going to come up, we're going to try the door. Okay, it's locked. So now, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to sound the door. We're going to want to see if there's anything, if it's so with an outward swinging door, what's some possible obstacles that we couldn't see from the outside? Obviously, our door prop has the wood block here to simulate forcing the door, but what would be some things that might be on the inside of the door that would prevent us from forcing it if it were in real life? Dresser.
A bar.
A drop bar. So a drop bar would dresser's not really going to hold us up from forcing it. An outward swinging door, but a drop bar would. So a drop bar, if we saw some bolts, we would know okay, there could be a drop bar across the jamb, so that's some things we would want to look at. That would be kind of part of it if we were sounding the door. And whenever I say sounded, I mean just striking the door to see. And with an outward swinging door, it's not going to be really as crucial because you're not going to get much flex. But on an inward swinging door, that's whenever you're really going to want to sound it. Outward swinging, it's not really going to do a whole lot. But inward swinging, what it can tell you is if the door is pinned or if the door is like if it has multiple locks or things you can't really tell. On an outward swinging, you can still do that, but it's whenever you sound it, it's going to hit the jamb, and it's not really going to tell you much. So another thing to look for is what kind of jamb it is. If it's a steel jamb, that's going to tell us you know how we can kind of force it. If it's got a wood jamb, you're going to definitely want to take more care into like on an inward swinging for driving your forks in, getting them in a good spot, because you don't want to blow the jamb out, because then you're going to have less material to work with whenever you're applying force to the door. So just checking to see what the jamb is and inspecting the lock. So if it's just a knob, that's another thing for sizing up the door. If you look and you feel that the knob is unlocked and you pull it, okay, now you know you're working against the deadbolt. If you know the knob's locked and there's no deadbolt, that's going to tell you, okay, this door is going to force pretty easy because there's no deadbolt. If the deadbolt's in, it's going to be a lot harder to force than just the knob. If it's just the knob, you're going to have a little easier time defeating that than a true deadbolt or a drop bar or whatever else you might be coming across. So those are the things to look for. So now we've sized up the door, we've tried before we pried. Now it's going to be time to kind of to sound the door and then start forcing it. So we've sounded our door. Now I'm going to go ahead and stick the adze in here. I'm going to kind of crush the door, get myself a gap. Then I'm going to pry back, and I'm going to have Captain Cherney hit the Halligan. So hit, stop. So what I'm looking for here is basically, and you can bring the camera around here, I'm looking to make sure my adze has peeled and has got around the backside of the door, and I haven't peeled the jamb, and it's around the backside of the door. I don't know if you guys can see that, the rest of my class, but if you can see that, that's what you're kind of looking for. Whenever you're driving the Halligan or hitting the Halligan, you want to pull back on the Halligan a little bit, and that if you pull back, it allows the adze to kind of curve around the door, and then you can get a lot better. You're driving it a lot easier. If you don't pull on it, a lot of times the adze will be driving into the jamb of the door, and it's a lot harder to drive. So now that we've got our Halligan in place, what we're going to want to do now is just go ahead and force the door. So I'm going to force the door. Some things to think about with this is once you apply the force and the door does break open, just keeping your footing and you know, maintaining that, and then door control. So go ahead and I'm going to force the door. So we've got the door forced. Now we're going to close the door back for door control. And then we're going to be waiting. Now what are we kind of thinking about now? Are we waiting for a hose line? Maybe this was just a ventilation opening, so we're going to wait to set a fan. But we're just still controlling the flow path. Now we know the door's locked, or we know the door's open. So now if we need to open it again, we can do that. But another thing to think about, I've seen before, guys force the door and then close it back, and the knob was still locked. So they close it back and the knob locks again. Then they go to open it again, and like crap, so they got to force it twice. So that's something to think about. Maybe unlock the knob, because then it really throws you for a loop, because you're like, I just forced this door, but the knob was still locked, and whenever they shut it back, it just relocked. But so So that's the outward swinging. That's kind of the basics of that. Now, we might just go ahead and have a few evolutions through that, if you guys want to. Then we'll work to an inward swinging door. Inward swings are going to be more common on residential doors. Almost all front doors, residential houses are going to be inward swinging. Where you're going to see most outward swinging doors are going to be commercial doors. That's an outward swinging door. That's an outward swinging door. Most commercial buildings will have outward swinging doors. Front doors will usually have panic bars, things like that. So, but on these, you're just going to see these. You're going to see mostly inward swinging on residential. So,
Doing evolutions of this?
do what?
We're doing evolutions
Yeah,
of this?
yeah.
All right.
We're just gonna.
Hit! 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 Stop! That's an odd angle there. Really breaks at an odd angle.
Yeah, I noticed that too whenever I broke it. I think it's because it's such a wide. It's not very narrow here. But okay, does anybody want to make another round through this? We'll do another team and then just demonstrate doing a single man forcible entry. Oh. Bucket?
Keep going. No, keep going.
Yeah, behind those tools. There's a bucket for those.
My jacket on. I'm gonna put my jacket on. You're more than welcome
To file it.
You'll gain additional powers now. Power of Magri. Hit. 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 Stop.
All right, so that's the basics of doing a two-man forcible entry. Now we'll kind of do the mechanics of a one-man forcible entry. And it's a lot of the same stuff. It's just kind of working by yourself and how you strike the tool by yourself. So, same thing, same tools, same thought process. You're sizing up the door, looking at the hinges. Okay, I can see the hinges. I know I'm outward swinging. Then you're looking at the lock mechanism. Okay, I've just got, just a simple knob and deadbolt. Then you're moving up to the door, same thing, sounding it, and then you're kind of working through that. One thing you do, so on this door, if you want to come around here, we've got a really big gap. So this is super easy to slide the adze of the Halligan in and start driving it. Sometimes these gaps aren't, well, most of the time these gaps aren't this big. On the door prop they are, But if they're a lot tighter, what you can do is you can use the blade of the axe, and since it's such it's a lot more, it's a lot sharper angle, you can set that in there, and then you can drive it in with the Halligan to kind of get you a decent purchase point. Then you can get the Halligan in there, and then to release the axe, you just crush the door a little bit and pull the axe out. So on most doors, you're probably going to have to do that because you just can't get the Halligan in a good enough spot to hold it while you drive it by yourself. So if you're working by yourself, a lot of times you'll have to do that. Then once you get your adze started in, you can just start tapping it in with your flathead of your axe. So, and same thing, you're pulling back towards you, and then if you want to bring the camera around here, when you pull it back towards you, you can see the adze come around the door, and you're not driving it in the jam. So that's one benefit of using a training prop, is the training prop will teach you that, whereas a normal door, you'll just blow the jam out, and you won't ever know it until you come across a steel door, and then you're just driving it in that steel jam, and you can't figure out why you're not making any distance, and then that's why you're just probably driving it into the steel jam. So pull it to you a little bit. I hold my foot on the door too, just to kind of keep pressure on the door. As long as everything stays tight, you can apply more force than if the door's rocking. But so I just kind of get it in there. So then I check it. I know I've drove far enough. I slide my tool out of the way so it doesn't trip me up. And then I get back here and get as much force as I can. And I just come around and break it. And then, like I said, control the door, close it back. That's the one-man operation. That's how we force a lot of the doors, because we're just working by ourselves sometimes on if we're circling around a building, we can it's better to know how to do it single-handedly than with two guys, because you might not always have that option. So that's the one-man operation. If you want to do a couple rounds through that. Oh, can't hear. Probably move your Halligan closer to the block and get more force going on it than further away. All right, so here's kind of another thing. That was a tougher one. Some of these blocks are a little bit tougher than others. So if we do run into that, here's an option. So I usually always carry the New York hook and the set of irons. That's what I always grab. So, and one of the reasons why is for this, I've ran across doors where they were really, really tough and they were deck screwed, and I had a heck of a time. And I wish I would have known this trick that I know now then, and I probably could have forced this door, because there was one I just couldn't do. Well, they ended up cutting it, and it might not have worked anyways, but this is just a tool for the toolbox. But so I'd set my New York hook down, and then I'd come in, same thing, just kind of get myself a little bit of a gap here, and then part of it, we want to stay as close to the deadbolt or the lock, whatever mechanism it is, as we can, because we'll apply more force. So I have had doors too where they were deadbolted up here, and it's harder to force them unless you come up real close, because the door will flex. So the door will flex out around that locking mechanism, and you're not putting hardly any force in it. So the closer you can get within reason, the better. So if you get close, and we'll say, slow, we'll say that didn't break as easy, and now we're at this point, and we just cannot get it to break through. One thing we can do is we can take the New York hook, and we can, and it's a little easier to do this whenever we got a little bit tougher door, because this one is wanting to break free anyways. But you can kind of marry the New York hook and the Halligan bar together, and then whenever you pry it, it just kind of matches together. And all you're doing all I'm doing with my left hand is just keeping them together. I'm not really applying any force with it. I'm applying most of my force with my right hand, and it just basically turns the New York hook into a cheater pipe. And then so you just flex it around there like that, and it just opens the door a lot easier. So that one is easier too with two guys. Like if you get two guys on a Halligan and you can't get it open, that's the next step. But you can still do it with one guy, and it's definitely easier. Most doors that you're forcing, this is an odd angle to be forcing it at, because most of the time, if you've got this big of a gap, the door's forced. You rarely ever have a 3-inch gap without the door being forced. So this is a little bit odd, but it's just part of the door prop, but still good to work through. But most of the time, you're having trouble at this point, not at this point. So that's kind of how those techniques are designed for more real doors than just a door prop. So okay, so that's the basics of the outward swinging door. Now what we'll do is we'll move to the inward swinging door. So we'll swing this prop out here. We'll do the same thing. We'll do a two-man. We'll do a two-man, and then we'll go to one-man. So we're doing two-man. Gonna kind of do the same thing. I'm gonna have you run the axe, I'll run the Halligan. What are we looking at? First thing, what are we looking at? Hinges.
Where's the hinges at?
Okay, can we see the hinges?
Nope.
No, can't see the hinges. So we know it's inward swinging. So we don't see the hinges, we know it's inward swinging. Now what? We're still sizing the door up. We're still sizing the lock up. We can't immediately see anything, but we'll just pretend that it's just a deadbolt and a knob, like most all interior doors are. So we see that. Okay, deadbolt, knob. Try the knob. Knob's locked. Door's locked. Okay, so we've sized it up. We've tried before we pried. Now it's time to size the door. Now is whenever you'll see, because there's a lot of times drop bars can be on interior doors too. Interior doors can really have anything that the person has cooked up. It can have a door stop on the bottom. It can have a drop bar. It can have bolts up through the top. It can be screwed shut entirely, it can have a bunch of different stuff. So this is where sounding the door is really crucial, because if you sound the door and you get, okay, I got a lot of flex up there, real solid here, okay, probably deadbolt, and then real solid down here, I'm not getting nothing down there, okay. So you're still going to attack it the same way. You're still going to start off with the forks, and you're going to start off that way, but you're going to want to keep that in mind, because you might have to move once you defeat this lock. You might have to move down and move closer to defeat the whatever is stopping it at the bottom. It might be you know, a door stopper or whatever. You don't really know until you get down there. So those are the things you're sizing up. So that's what we're doing. I'm going to go ahead and sound the door here. So just give it a few whacks at the top. Okay, we had pretty good movement there. I think it's good there. That's solid. A lot of movement there. Okay, so probably just the deadbolt. So now what we're going to want to do is we're going to start with the forks. So the best way to do it here is you want to feed the forks in, and then what your forks are trying to do is wrap around the door frame and catch the backside of the door frame, and then come on around. This is the ideal way to do it. This is how you want to set your Halligan. The only time where you might not be able to do that is if this gap is just super, super tight. Then you might even have to start like this. So normally I always start like this, but I have had some doors where I just couldn't really get it in here very good, and I did go ahead and start this way, and I drove it in, and then I forced it, and then I slipped out, then I went ahead and flipped around and got more mechanical advantage to go ahead and go. But most of the time, you can put the forks in like this and get it around the jam and go ahead and force it, no problem. But that's just something to do whenever you're working on creating the gap. Things to think about. Same thing, you can take the axe, you can set it down here, you can drive it in to get it kind of open, you know, with the Halligan if you need to. Then, because like the bevel of the forks don't really work very well until you get it on past the jam. Then it's perfect. So that's how you're going to want to do it. But the key is getting a good enough gap to be able to drive them in like that. So, and then the other thing too, whenever you're driving, is how you're applying your force. So like we were talking about with an outward swinging door, you want to pull the Halligan out to allow your Halligan to drive in easier. On this one, what you want to do is, if you want to zoom into the forks, Tyler, you want to push the Halligan to the door. That way it's not driving into the jam. It's pushed in, and then it's just sliding on around, and then you hook the backside of the jam, and then you're good to go. So, okay, sound the door. We've tried, we've sounded. Now it's time to drive the Halligan. So, Justin, if you want to go ahead and hit, drive. Stop. So now I've got my Halligan drove in. I've got it around the backside of the jam. Now it's time to go ahead and force the door. So now I've got the main part of the door forced. I can go ahead and flip the Halligan around, use the adze, brush it if I need to. So we've got the door open, reach in. I want to control the door, bring it back closed until we're ready to go with the hose line. All right, we'll do a couple evolutions of that. There. Hey, hit, drive. in there.
Putting the one in.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir. Here's the driver. You want to drive it? Alright, sizing up my door, inward swinging, try before I fry, sound the door, soft, solid, soft, set my forks. Okay, hit, drive. I got my bevel the wrong way. I'm an idiot.
Where's the
Try
lever?
this again. Okay, hit, drive. Stop.
All right, perfect. Okay, now we'll do single man. So this is what we're gonna have a lot of times on the truck. Single truck firefighter gets off to come up to force the door while the engine firefighter is stretching the line. The captain's got command, so this is gonna be the bread and butter house fire with the front door lock. So it's like I said, same thing. Still sizing the door up. We're still looking at the lock mechanism. We're just operating everything solo. So checking the hinges. We know it's inward swinging. And like I said, most, I would say 98% residential doors are going to be inward swinging on the front doors especially. But you never know. Sometimes things get crafty. So to say the least. But so anyway, so we've sized up our door. Now it's time to try before we pry. So we try before we pry, and like I said, the biggest thing here is getting a good enough gap to operate by yourself. It's really tough. It's really tough to get these forks in and started by yourself and drive it, because it's just so tight. Every time you hit it, it's just kind of bouncing off. So what you want to do is you want to create a decent gap. So if you can get the axe head started, do that. If you have to, another thing you can do is you can put it in the jam, and you can crease the door a little bit. But here, what's going to happen a lot of times here, especially on wood jams, if you put very much pressure in that, you'll just break the door jam off. If it's a wood jam, that'll just break off. So really, you're not going to be able to create much gap like that. And that's what a lot of times a door prop will kind of give you a little bit of false confidence by doing that. So, but you can still start the axe. So you can still get the axe in here. You can kind of place your foot on the handle, drive that in, and whenever you drive it, you can see the door. You can see the door really gap open nicely. So got it gapped open nicely. Take my forks, slide them in here. I could pretty well wiggle that into a good spot. And then come around here, hold my Halligan up. And then the same thing, while I'm driving it, I'm leaning into it to give it just a little bit of pressure so it'll slide around the jam. So leaning into it, keep an eye on it. Now I've got it drove in. Now I'm gonna force it, and I can even put my foot on the jam to kind of give me a little bit of room here, and just bring it back. Come back and control it. So that's the technique for single man. We got another block in there. Okay.
7 minutes.
Keep doing a few more evolutions through this since this is our main go-to. If everybody wants to cycle through that, that's a that's what I was saying, like, very unusual where it stops. It's like a 3-inch gap. Who really made it? But yeah, so we've been recording for 40 minutes.
41 minutes.
41 minutes, okay. So that's an hour, 20 minutes. So we still got 40 minutes. Well, let's keep rolling through, guys. Lots of practice. We're going to be really good at this technique.
Mm-hmm.
We still got another, like, 40 minutes to go. I counted wrong. I thought it was counting down. So, anybody have anything they want to
You
try?
can wrap it up at the end with a summary back at the station
Okay.
too. You
Yeah.
know, with-
And then also, like, we could do like K-12 stuff.
Alright.
If they have the rebar
Well, let's-
tree.
Yeah.
You got this little guy?
Yeah, well, we're going to
Grab
roll into
tool.
that too.
Okay.
I'm just
Sizing
trying
the door up, inward swinging, try before I pry, sound it, sound it.
Married to Paladins.
I have. Yeah.
for extra electric.
The two core things together.
We'll just straight up and break on it.
That seems
We had. the hardest part is getting the New York hook held in place. Like,
So spicy.
Hey, hey.
yeah, let's try this.
Try tapping it in. Tap them together just a little. There you go. That one's spicy.